It's Zach Eady with Purdue men's basketball, and you're watching Boilers in the Stands.
Welcome back to Boilers in the Stands. I'm your host, Joe Jackson. Alongside me, as always, is my co-host, Kraig Bowers. Purdue, a very disappointing loss, 70-66 against Texas A&M in Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis. So a lot to break down from this game. Purdue had the chances. They stayed in the game enough to at least have a chance down the stretch. Wasn't able to come through, though. A lot of things to talk about, and we'll get into all of it. Kraig, I'll just throw it to you. Main thoughts from the game. You were also at press or anything that just kind of stood out from there?
It's interesting, I think, as we look at tonight, just in general. There were a lot of things that we talked about coming into this game that we knew were going to be there in terms of A&M was going to have offensive rebounding advantage. It just was what it is. Purdue's not necessarily this group anyway is not an elite offensive rebounding or rebounding team in general. So you felt like that was going to be there. So, when you look at that, you're saying, well, how can we steal possessions? How can we get back to even from a possession battle? And at the end of the day, for Purdue in this game, that was going to have to come from winning the turnover margin, right? And Purdue just didn't do that. They end up matching them. They actually do win the turnover margin. I guess they're +2 in terms of 2 less turnovers, but not enough to kind of make up that gap that came from all the extra possessions that A&M gets on the boards. And I really think a lot of that came just from the fact, to me, it felt like A&M was the aggressor all night on both ends of the floor. It felt like they had the energy, that they had the aggression all night, and that Purdue was defensive on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, and A&M had this game how they wanted. A little bit ugly, a little bit just stuck in the mud, physical, and Purdue had no adjustments, just straight up. Like Purdue they could not find a way to get what they needed to offensively. Defensively, one of the better games Purdue has played, to be honest. And some of it is in part because A&M just is willing to take bad shots and live with bad shots because they know just how elite they are on the offensive glass. It was just the offense, and it was shocking how it was. Like there was just the ball was not getting inside pretty much at all. And then when it did, like TKR, he's 3 of 9 from 2 with 5 turnovers. Like TKR has to be better. And then you look back at the Penn State game, you look at this game, like he has this thing where he gets stripped with the ball in his hands. So Purdue, but we'll talk more about that in a bit when we get into some of the individual player breakdowns. But Purdue just felt like they had no adjustments to me offensively. It was everything stayed on the perimeter. They are a jump shooting team, and it's who they are. And so some of it is just you kind of have to live with it. A&M switched a lot. A&M high hedged a lot. Really the switching more than anything. Like Purdue just didn't have an answer to be able to create. It's Braden Smith. Can you please create something for us? If that doesn't happen, Purdue just right now does not have anything they can consistently go to, especially in a game like this where A&M played fantastic post defense, and they're really similar to like what Nebraska does, right? Where they don't want to let those clean post looks happen. Now TKR can't going. Now everything's on Braden. Braden makes some very uncharacteristic passes and turnovers that aren't like him. Just straight up, they just aren't like how he is. And that's kind of how you get to this loss where it's a 4-point loss. You don't shoot the ball bad. You win the turnover battle, like you said. A&M probably, they got a little bit of shooting variance on their side, but at the same time, like Purdue had every chance that they needed.
Yeah, and with all that said, at the end of the day, we talked in the preview show about this A&M team is not a good shooting team. And outside of Wade Taylor, if A&M shoots their season average from 3 and Purdue shoots their season average from 3, Purdue likely wins this game. Like I didn't run the exact math, but if those things play out, and they end up shooting their season average from free throws at the end, but it was kind of who on their team was hitting those free throws that normally shoot between 45, one guy 6%, one guy like 60%. They were hitting their free throws tonight. There were just some oddities, like you said, some anomalies from a couple of their players, and then in their outside shooting compared to what had been for the whole year. That really, at the end of the day, even with all the things that Purdue didn't do right, this game could have gone the other way very easily.
And right, I think the major talking points, probably in national media and all that, is going to be Purdue can't win against aggression and all that, which, to be fair, they have to prove that they can, right? They beat Maryland mainly because Maryland decided to play drop coverage for whatever reason. But at the same time, it's just like it is still, if Purdue just makes some open shots that they got, just some of them, they probably still win this game. I'm going to look it up now. I know Heidi hits a late 3 and Colvin hit a late 3. Cox hit a late 3, which boosts the percentage a lot. But outside of Braden Smith, Purdue was 4 of 15 from 3, with I believe 2 or 3 of those coming basically in garbage time. Not quite garbage time, because Purdue obviously was still within reach, but like that point of the game where it's like, okay, like it's great you hit this, but you cut the lead from 6 to 3 with 10 seconds left. Like, it wasn't like the most meaningful threes, but Purdue got good looks. Colvin got good looks. Heidi got good looks. Lawyer, surprisingly, was the only one that didn't really get any looks from 3. Shikari misses, he misses his good look. Like, everybody outside Braden just couldn't knock down an open 3 to save their lives today. And that's part of what Texas A&M wants to do defensively. They rotate a lot. They're going to leave that skip pass there. Penn State, they're going to, hedge a lot. They're going to rotate. They're going to leave that skip pass. You have to knock down shots. Sometimes it's as simple as that. Like, you have to be able to knock down shots, because there was a lot of times in that second half where it felt like, okay, yes, Purdue is very stagnant. Purdue can't get much going. But also in that first half, like the offense was fine. Fine. The offense was fine. They just missed open shots. And sometimes that's how it goes. But also it's a little concerning to me that it has stood out this much in the past 2 of the past 3 games. I think it'll get righted, and you're just going to have these swings with Purdue being such a jump shooting team, but it really, really stood out once again to me.
Yeah, but I mean, in that first half, they were able to get out and transition a little bit, and then the first minute and a half, 2 minutes of the second half, and then that kind of all got shut down, because they win the fast break battle. I think 17 to what was it? What did they have? Fast break points 17-2. Right, they're plus 15 in fast break points. A lot of those came in the first half or in that first minute and a half of the second half, and then that kind of, the faucet kind of got turned off on that. And once Purdue had to play in the half court, I mean, if you can D up TKR and dial up a scheme or just one-on-one, there's been times where this offense has just looked extremely stagnant, and like guys aren't moving. Guys aren't cutting off of Braden, and the ball just seems to stick, and we're shooting late shot clock. One of the things Painter talked about in there was, we had however many turnovers, 16 turnovers, but we're still +2 in that margin. But there were 4, 5, 6, 7 times that Purdue gets forced into such a late shot clock that it's essentially a turnover, because they're just throwing up a shot at the backboard or the rim, trying to reset the shot clock. That's just a prayer, right? He's like, so really there's more. Those don't get counted as turnovers, but essentially they are.
Yeah, and credit Texas A&M, because they dictated this game pretty much. Maybe not the full 40, but 30 of the 40 minutes. They dictated how this game was going to be played. I just looked up the stats. Over 50% of Purdue's threes today were open shots, and you got to make some. It's not like they shot bad, right? And some of it is inflated, like I said, late game, but knocking down shots takes off so much pressure from Braden, right? And especially in a game like this where, hey, Texas A&M's defense is designed specifically to take TKR away and make Braden get rid of the ball. Other guys got to do it, and it's got to happen. Now, Braden did not play well. TKR did not play well. We'll talk about them. They are not without what's the word that I'm looking for? Blame. There it is. Yeah, that one. They're not without that by any means, but just got to see some other guys consistently do it. So,
to the point on, you said something about the national narrative will be, can they beat teams that pressure the way they did. And Painter kind of got asked about that in there, and his response was pretty simply just like, we've played. He said we've played teams that either are as good or, quite frankly, maybe better at pressuring than what Maryland has in the half court or full court, and beat them this year. He said we just have to take care of the ball, and it simply didn't happen today. In some other games, it has.
Yeah, no, 100%, and that's a big thing. And some of them were just so, especially Braden's, was just like the ball slips from his hand.
Lackadaisical.
Yeah, you have a semi-contested layup and you try to throw a skip pass instead. Like I know it's in his nature to pass, but in games like this, you have to be willing to just take those little shots that are maybe a little contested. And that's something actually that stood out to me. It just kind of dawned on me I think it was honestly the first half of like, Purdue is so good offensively, right? And I know this was not a good game offensively, but in general, Purdue is a very good offense. And part of it, what it is they can just keep working the ball until they get a great shot. It felt like at times, Braden, Lawyer, even CJ did it, I think, a bit of like, you pass up good shots and trying to get the great shots. And now a lot of times that's a compliment, right? Like, oh, wow, this offense passes up good shots for great shots. Against a defense like A&M, against a defense like Penn State, or we're going to play UCLA at some point, something like that. I don't know if you can do that. Like, if you have a good shot, you just kind of have to take it. And yes, maybe it's slightly more contested, and against a worse defense, yes, you could probably keep moving the ball and you'll get a wide open three. But against a team like this, that's going to fly around, that has athleticism, that has length, like, you kind of just got to take the good shot, the first one. I know it's not like their principle, but like, it just stood out to me that like, hey, you can't let this defense get back into it. If you have them beat in the slightest, you kind of just have to do it. You just have to shoot it.
Yeah, and Painter referenced that a little bit, specifically when I asked him about CJ getting a little bit more run in 2 of the last 3 games, and he was talking about just his shot making ability, and he said, he had 2 or 3 today that he was kind of like, take it, man, take it. Like, you've got it. You're here to score. You've got the shot. Take the shot. And yeah, against defenses like this, you have to. They're so good at rotations and closing out, man.
Oh yeah.
Even down that stretch, I know you're saying that one by Miles, maybe one by CJ at the end were kind of junk time threes, but like, they were still rotating and flying out like crazy on those. So yeah, I don't know. Purdue's trying to get a quick one, and I think they force 7 or 8 passes before Purdue can get one up because they're just so quick and so long doing that.
Yeah, and credit to them. Like, this was a very good Texas A&M game. If Texas A&M was to come up with a game plan of how they want to win every game, it looks a lot like this. It really does. So credit to them. Before we get into, you just started the comment. I was going to just go to it.
Oh, you want to go to it?
Yeah, we'll do that, and then we'll get into some
Let me say one last thing before you go to that, because it doesn't address this. But anyway, I've not been on the train all year of like really lamenting how bad we missed Jacobson, because I thought there were going to be issues that Jacobson faced when he got into play, especially in Big Ten against some big physical centers, just because of kind of where his weight is and he can get pushed around a little bit. But I think it has been a little bit glaring in a couple of these games just because we have no secondary post score. And was he the answer? No. But man, it'd be nice to have a second guy that scores in a little different way than TKR, that you can just throw it up to a little bit for some lobs, that can hit a little, hook shot or jump shot as well with his shot making ability. So I'm not on the train that some people are of like, that completely changes the season. But man, it'd be nice in these games where TKR can't get going and they're big enough and athletic enough to affect him to have that second option off the bench offensively. But yeah, let's go to yours for sure next.
Well, yeah, and I'll add to that quick. It's like, so Berg, the second half wasn't great. That first half was solid. Was he fantastic? No. Was he bad? No. He was fine. That's him. Berg playing did not lose this game for Purdue in any sort of sense. It just would be nice that, like, when you want to go 2 bigs like they wanted to for a bit today, it could have been Jacobson and not having to hope Berg and or First just kind of show something, or Burgess when he gets the minutes. let's get to this comment from Russ Dunn. Love the Boilers, but we are clearly not last year's team. Upper tier in Big Ten this year. Maybe make it to the second or third round in the tournament. Sit back and enjoy the season. Good/not great. And I guess all I had to say, like, I guess I agree with this overall. And I think fans, like, right, like, I don't think fans should be like, oh, wow, we can't think that this team can't be great or anything, or hold them to expectations and that. But at the same time, I think you do have to be realistic of like if Purdue had an average season last year, I think we're looking at this loss a bit differently. But they didn't, right? They went to the national championship. They were an elite team the past few years. This is a program that is built and has had tons of success the past decade. They aren't at that elite tier right now. They just aren't. I don't think they really have been all year. Can they get to that maybe by the end? Absolutely. If things start breaking things certain ways, Braden Smith and TKR are going to be two of the best players in the conference. And when you have that, you are capable of winning every single game. But it's just kind of like, yeah, like I think how you view the expectations, like if you think that this team has to be, top 5 in the country or bust, then yeah, you're like, probably this is, the end of the world type game for you. But if this is like, hey, Purdue has a lot of things to work on because, hey, they have a lot of holes, but also most Big Ten teams do. Not that you shouldn't be disappointed, not that you can't have critiques, anything like that with this team, because that's what we're going to do for this show. But at the same time, it kind of is like, okay, yeah, that's where this team is at, in my opinion.
No, I'm 100% with you. And I mean, I think we talked about that in the offseason leading up to this. Like, if you're going to come in and measure this year's team relative to last year's team, like that's your prerogative. There's only a handful of teams in the entire country that year in, year out truly have the chance to make a Final Four every single year. Purdue's generally not in that conversation as one of those blue bloods that has the ability to do that. So, for me, I am just enjoying kind of watching it play out and seeing different guys grow and seeing different guys develop. And I think we will continue to do that. We've seen different things out of CJ in these last 3 or 4 games. I think we'll see other guys start to emerge a little bit more. We've seen Miles and Cam put the ball on the floor once today and got to the rim. Like those little things take time and grow. And these games matter now, right? But
Yep.
The games matter the most in March, not right now. So,
yep, for sure.
Let's get to
Steve
that.
Sweigel also
Go
says
ahead.
Purdue should still be a top contender in the Big Ten. Most Big Ten teams don't play like Penn State, Marquette, Texas A&M. That is true. Like UCLA is going to be a team that does. Michigan, maybe, off the top of my head. Like it's going to be a challenge, but let's get to the ad read and then kind of get to some of the player breakdowns.
Yeah, Purdue graduate and current Lafayette resident, BJ Rule has close to 15 years experience helping buyers, sellers, and real estate investors in Lafayette and surrounding areas. If you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, give BJ a call or text to set up an appointment to see how he can help you accomplish your goals. Your home will likely be the most expensive purchase of your life. Have the experts with Rainey & Company at Keller Williams on your side and let BJ help you navigate this process. Call 317-345-4600. Once again, that's 317-345-4600. We thank BJ again for sponsoring this episode of this show. Appreciate everything that he's done with us in terms of advertising and helping us get to all these events through sponsorship. And I said, Purdue graduate, longtime friend. Get a hold of him for any of your real estate needs in Tippecanoe County and surrounding areas.
Yep, appreciate him sponsoring the show. So,
also hit that like button.
Yeah,
2 likes, a few hundred people watching.
We do appreciate all the support. Let's get into some of the players. I'll pull up the Purdue stats right here. Unless there was anything, I guess I just kind of went. Is there anything else big picture you wanted to talk about? Okay.
Nope. Let's get into it.
Let's start with Braden because I think we have to. 15 points on 5 of 14 shooting, 5 of 11 from 3, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 6 turnovers, 2 blocks, 4 steals. It is a testament to how good Braden Smith is that he puts up 15, 6, and 6 with 2 blocks and 4 steals and shoots 5 of 11 from 3. And I thought it was not a good Braden Smith game. Like, that is just the level that he is at. That is the standard that he is going to be held to and should be held to, because 6 turnovers can't happen. Just straight up cannot happen, especially on this team where he is everything, right? I know TKR can be that release valve. Braden Smith, it has the ball in his hands every single possession for a lot of the time. And just some of the passing up looks, a little bit careless with the ball, like those things can't happen. I understand he is under an immense amount of pressure, and getting somebody like CJ or Jakari and that can kind of help alleviate that would be good and will be good as both of them continue to develop. But at the same time, it's Braden. Like Braden can't turn the ball over like that. He's the only other game he's had more than 3 turnovers this year was the first game of the season against Corpus Christi. He had 15 assists that game. Like he still did good, right? And he was very active defensively. And I think that probably is overshadowed in my mind a bit just because of the turnovers. But at the same time, I know that it isn't his strong suit necessarily to just ISO create always. But like, I don't know, Purdue almost needed it from him, which is maybe saying more about the rest of the roster than Braden Smith. He just has to simply take care of the ball. Like if he has 6 turnovers, it's going to be hard for Purdue to win games.
Yeah, and one of the words that Painter kept using over and over again in the press conference was efficiency. And this just wasn't a high efficiency game. Obviously, he shoots 5 of 11 from 3, so was proficient from there and efficient from 3, but 5 of 14 field goals on the day. And like you said, 6 turnovers to 6 assists, so basically a 1-to-1 ratio. And yeah, it's tough on a stat line other than the turnovers to say it was not a good Braden Smith game, but also he's picked to be the Big Ten Player of the Year coming in, right? And we talked about this with Edie last year, the few times throughout the entire season that you could maybe be a little critical of a game is, he's just going to be held to a higher standard. When you're picked potential preseason All-American of the Year, potential Bob Cousy Award winner of the year, potential Big Ten Player of the Year, that comes with those extra expectations and standards of kind of what you have to do. And I think, too, this team just kind of goes as Smith goes in terms of how they hold themselves together from a composure standpoint. Because when Braden starts to turn the ball over, sometimes he gets a little bit frustrated, and then you can just kind of see it bleed through the rest of the team, right? And it's like chaos begets chaos. And I think he's just he said it in the press conference, like he's got to be better. And what essentially he blamed it on was just kind of a lack of focus and concentration in certain moments. And that was the most frustrating thing for me, is some of them just came off of passes that looked completely lackadaisical. Like Texas A&M is playing up close, and it's like a 15-foot pass that was just kind of lazily thrown out there, which to me is a focus or concentration thing. And I guarantee he's going to bounce back. And we got the Auburn game. We'll do the preview show on sometime this next week, but I won't be shocked at all if Painter said that Maryland game was maybe Braden's best game that he's ever played at Purdue.
Yep.
It will not shock me at all if Braden turns right back around and puts up a performance like that against Auburn.
Yeah, and we'll get into the Auburn preview. Purdue's going to need it from him. Like if they want to win that game, it's going to start with Braden Smith. Braden Smith's still very, very good. Obviously, he still did a lot of really good things, and at times was the only offense that Purdue had, just by being able to get to that jumper that not many people in the entire conference can get to like him. Like, I don't know if there's many off the dribble shooters that are better than him in the entire conference off the top of my head. And so there's still a lot of good. Obviously the defense was very active as well, which is a big thing for Purdue in general. Is like, they're just right. They're not Texas A&M level or Penn State level of forcing turnovers, but like they're a lot better than what they've been. And some of that is Braden. Braden's upped his steal percentage a lot. So yeah, it's simply put, he has to be better. And then if you have nothing,
when's the last time he hasn't hit a 2 in a game?
I could
all 15 really points came off of a 3-pointers today. Like that, I just kind of noticed that stat, which kind of speaks to the fact that he just never really had a chance to get downhill today.
Yeah. Marshall, he was 0 of 4 with 9 assists in 26 minutes, if that counts.
Sure.
But yeah, no, that's a good call out. It only was 3 times last year, all of last year, that he didn't score a 2. If we're talking about players that have to be better, I think the next player we have to go to is Trey Kaufman-Renn. 11 points, 4 rebounds, 5 fouls, 5 turnovers, 2 steals, 3 of 9 from the field, 5 of 6 from the free throw line. He knocked down some free throws, which was good. this is obviously a game we mentioned, right? Texas A&M's designed to take away the post. They're going to double. They're going to force baseline, rotate defenses. I'll throw it to you first because I went on Braden first, but yeah, I'll throw it to you first.
I mean, really, since Trey has been kind of thrust into the limelight now that Zach's gone, this probably just his worst game of the year, just being honest, right? Marquette, you could point to Marquette, I think, in that one. No, it was the Penn State game. He had maybe six or seven turnovers in that game, but he scored in that game too. And he just got, I thought, completely flustered in this one. I was honestly a little bit surprised in the first half, even though they're trying to take that away, that they didn't go to him in a true post up a little bit more, just so he has that kick out to whoever's open off of that. But then they kind of went to it a little bit more in the second half, and they were just jumping his pass in those passing lanes a lot of times. And like you said, he's getting stripped a little bit. And I mean, I really felt like he just kind of got bullied today. I mean, there was a couple times he gets blocked, a couple other times that maybe he didn't get blocked, but just completely affected the shot and just kind of toss it more than shot it at the rim, I guess. This is the first game. I don't think he really struggles with bigger guys in terms of height, but guys that are really athletic and physical that are same size or a little bit taller, I think can really affect him. And I thought they kind of punked him a little bit today.
Yeah, and you could see the frustration that TKR had. And like this, I can't say it enough. This is one of the worst matchups for him in terms of getting post touches, right? And even on the short rolls and stuff, like A&M does phenomenal of rotating in and just eating up the passing lanes and basically not letting him get any looks, right? One or two looks maybe towards the end where Purdue was actually able to get them spaced out a bit in the middle on the short roll. But yeah, just I think the thing that stood out to me is like, and it stood out in the Penn State game, is like he just gets ripped. Like he has to be stronger with the ball. And I didn't think that was going to be an issue. Like it wasn't something that I feel like has been surrounding him, at least in my mind, of like, oh, TKR is weak with the ball. But there's just so many times where it's just a quick just swipe, just gets him. And now he has 5 turnovers there. I mean, yes, it's not like I don't know. He's not been terrible aside from the Penn State and A&M game. So maybe it's me a little bit overreacting, but I don't know. It just really stood out once again of like, hey, he kind of just has to have stronger hands.
Also, he can't see over the double like Zach can. So the couple of times he's been doubled, I think he's a really good passer. I almost like him better as a passer when he's on that short roll, right? And he's kind of got his head looking both directions. But when he's in a true post and they come over and double, he has a harder time seeing out of it. And sometimes he just misses a guy that's in that passing lane or is close enough to be able to jump it and throws into traffic sometimes. So, can work on that, can get better at that. But at 6'8", probably 6'9", there's going to be some matchups where it's just going to be difficult.
Yep, no, it is. And again, he just has to be consistent on the glass. He ends up with 4 boards. I'm not going to speak too much on it because I was more just in awe of what A&M was able to do offensive rebounding, that I didn't notice specifically what he was or was not doing, but that'll always be a key talking point with him. Who do you want to go to next?
I mean, I think we got to go to Fletch because there was a moment in this game where you were like, oh, big game Fletch came out. And like, he was really forcing the action in the first half. And he doesn't hit a 3 in this game. He hit 3 shots early on in mid-range. One was a little floater runner. One was a bank shot. And one was just a pull up. And then he gets fouled on another take where he tries to go all the way to the rim. And they just completely took him away in the second half. And I don't know, you're better at recognizing this stuff in real time. I don't know if they did something specifically to take him away or Fletch just wasn't as aggressive as the first half. But I know they were denying that dribble handoff up top a lot. Yes. And man, Texas A&M was so good about, and I guess that's what stood out to me when the preview, I watched some of the film before, is I didn't think they would force as many turnovers on us as they did, but I did think that they would just drag out possessions and make us shoot late shot clock because they deny. And there were multiple times either Braden or Fletch is trying to come around and get that dribble handoff and end up having to rescreen, maybe a third time before they even get the ball to kind of Braden to initiate the action.
Yeah, no, A&M was blowing up handoffs. They did not make life easy. The other thing I like about what they do, A&M, is like, right, they hedged half the game, they switched half the game. But when they were switching, it wasn't like a lot of times you see teams just easily give up the switch and you just kind of walk and, okay, switch. A&M doesn't do that. Like, they make you work to get that. And then also when you do switch, they're so, aside from Wade Taylor, everybody's 6'4" to 6'8", 6'9". Like, it doesn't really matter if you get the switch or not. I do think A&M made more of an effort second half to not send the help off of Fletch. They were going to send it off of Colvin, off of Heidi, obviously stick with TKR and put 2 on the ball and Braden. They didn't really want to let him get the ball. And so you see that's where, Colvin gets up 8 shots. Heidi gets up 6. Like, that's kind of how that happens, is like, I think I don't know. It's a back and forth, right? Because you can be like, oh, well, why didn't Painter just like get Fletch the ball more? But it's like not that simple of like, and Painter has said this before, right? It's not like you can just like snap your fingers and get whatever you want, because there is a whole nother team doing things. And a lot of Fletch's on-ball stuff comes from those handoffs we talked about. Fletch isn't the strongest player out there, right? And so when A&M can be physical and just blow up those handoffs and cut them off, and now you like, why would you go to that, right? Because it's not going to be a productive look, because it's going to be a turnover. Fletch is going to have to dribble through 2 people, and then if that happened, everybody would be in here being like, oh, why is Fletch dribbling? I don't know.
To who's Johnny point, it's probably more about what they did to him rather than just not getting Fletch the ball.
Yeah, and it's not like, I'm not saying that Purdue shouldn't try. I just, off the top of my head, I don't know how you get him more looks if A&M isn't helping off of him, and if they're doing a fantastic job of just blowing up all the screens. And that's kind of where I think is what I wanted to go with that. Yeah, I mean, that first half was good from Fletch. Like, it was like, yeah, oh, this looks like the Arizona game again. Like, getting some steals, or a steal,
drawing a charge,
getting to the rim, getting to the floaters. Like, it was like, oh yeah, Fletch is here. And then second half, I could be wrong. I'll rewatch, and I could very much be wrong. And it was just like, it was just simply Lawyer didn't get the ball. But from what I watched, it felt like A&M made an effort to just not help off of him when needed, so that way he couldn't either catch and shoot or catch and rip and go. Did you have anything else for Fletch?
I do not.
Colvin or Heidi, I guess. I don't know if I have anything different. I think I could almost lump them together, I feel like.
That's what I was just going to say. I think we could kind of talk about those together. I mean, I thought Miles did some good things in this game. Obviously, in the second half, right, he gets out in transition. I thought his defense was by and large pretty good in this game. I don't know that either one of them had a huge rebounding impact today.
4 for Heidi, 2 for Colvin.
Okay, so Heidi a little bit more than Colvin, but Colvin did get out and run, scores a few times there, especially just start the second half, hits that late 3, did get those 2 free throws, but, it's really good that Miles has brought value to this team outside of his shooting, but the shooting's the cherry, right? Like, and it just hasn't been consistent. And I think you and I were talking about it as we were sitting up there. You mentioned just kind of his fluctuations and how he'll go on a run and then really won't for maybe a stretch. And it keeps that shooting percentage high. But it's just not necessarily consistent from game to game. I do think a lot of that is how much he elevates on his shot. I think when you talk about elite 3-point shooters, it's being able to replicate over repeatability, right, of your motion and of your form. And the fact that he elevates so high, I think just makes that whole dynamic a little bit harder.
That's fair. And I hadn't thought about that, but that is a fair point, especially as he's asked to do more and more defensively, like tires him out a bit. I just quickly screenshotted. It's thrown up. It's kind of aligned nicely in the middle for us. These are his 3-pointers, makes and then attempts throughout the season. So 4 of 7, 1 of 5, 2 of 4, 0 of 0, 0 of 2, 2 of 3, 0 of 2, 3 of 5, 2 of 3, 0 of 2, 1 of 6. Basically, he's either making a lot or he's making like none. Like right? 1 of 5 is 20%. So he has no game where he shot between 20 and 50% from 3. It's either below that or above that. And only one of those games is at 50%. I guess you just kind of live with that. It's like, hey, he's going to be a little bit streaky. There's going to be games that he's going to knock down 4, and then there's going to be other games where he has to keep shooting them. Like he should never stop shooting them, right?
Yep.
But you just kind of know that, hey, this might just be who he is going forward. And then for Heidi, right? Like Heidi's the one where it's just like he is so dependent on others to get him looks. Now he did have that nice drive where TKR seals and he gets the big dunk. I don't actually his 3 2s. I don't remember the other 2 off the top of my head, to be 100% honest. So
one was a tip in, like he kind of flew in and just tipped it back in.
Okay. Yeah, I mean 1 for 3 from 3. He's two of his last 10 from 3 after a really, really hot stretch. So another guy that's like a little bit streaky, I think. He just doesn't have as much volume. It was good to see him drive. I don't know. I don't have much either way on him, I guess.
Yeah. Just didn't necessarily feel like he impacted the game in a needle moving way. Miles had that really nice run where he got out in transition there, over that minute and a half or whatever. But man, Purdue just needed a little bit more, right? In the first half specifically, where they had open looks. Like they just needed a little bit more, just a couple of shots from both of these guys, and they walk out with a win today.
Yeah, like the margins were pretty thin in this game. They really were. Like you knew A&M's going to rebound well. Knocked down a couple shots. Knocked down a couple shots. This game is probably different. So CJ Cox probably next. I'll let you kind of go.
Yeah, and I did ask Painter just about, we've seen a little bit of uptick. Interestingly enough, that uptick has come in 2 losses, right? So he gets 19 minutes against Penn State. He gets almost 17 minutes today. But I think it still speaks to the fact that when he's getting those minutes in those 2 games, it's because they're searching for another scorer. They're searching for another ball handler. They're searching for another creator. And CJ gives you that option. And I think right now, look, Jakari is going to be a really, really good player at Purdue. But I think you're starting to see a little bit of a switch here of just like, okay, both of these guys are pretty good defensively. Both of these guys are pretty good as a secondary ball handler. Right now, one of those 2 just brings more shot making. And they have to honor that with CJ. And, 10 points today, 2 of 3 from 3. One of those did come down the stretch, but was a really nice shot fake, step to the side, just drills that 3 with a lot of confidence. I thought he turned a few down, like Painter said in the press conference. I thought he turned a few down. One of the 3s that he did take, he took a long 2-point jumper. He had a run to the rim. Like it was there, and he chose to shoot that. Now, his 15 to 18 footer is so pretty. If he goes to the rim and he gets blocked, then we're saying like, take the good shot, don't force it. But I thought he did some really good things today. Painter said he thought he played a really nice game today. I know you don't love plus minus. I don't love it either without context, but he's +8 today in plus minus, and he's the only person positive other than Will Berg at +2.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, CJ is good, and you're going to get some of the shot making. I think he's another guy that's a little streaky right now, but he's also a freshman, so I think that's very understandable. For me, like I still trust Jakari handling the ball more, but defenses just don't have to respect him right now for shooting the 3. So it kind of cancels out that he can handle the ball better, in my opinion. But no, CJ knocks down a couple shots. Defense solid, right? Like he's a very pesky defender. Big thing for me going forward, and I honestly think this will just keep getting better as he gets minutes and he keeps getting reps, and because he's a freshman, right? It is just that ball handling, the turnover, some of the decision making. I think he gets sped up at times. But it's because he's trying to create, right? And those ones you can live with more, right? I just threw a really bad pass or a lazy pass. Those are the ones you can't have. But I feel like most of CJ's mistakes come from, I'm trying to get downhill. I'm trying to make a play for my team, and something happens and a turnover happens. Those ones you can live with. I think he's going to keep getting minutes. I'm still a big Jakari believer, but I understand, like, at this point, like, Jakari is not, like, everything that I think Jakari does really well gets canceled out because he can't shoot and defenses don't have to care at this point. And I think the shooting long-term turns around, but it makes sense that, especially in a game like this, but honestly, a lot of games going forward, that you just need that guy that can go create, who's, like, besides Fletch, like CJ, and CJ might even be better than Fletch already, of just going and simply creating a shot. And when I harped on, like, hey, Braden Smith has to do everything, Purdue needs a secondary guy, and CJ Cox at times can be it. And as he just works through some of the little freshman things, it's just going to get so much better too.
Yeah, and one of the things I mentioned the other day that I thought is that he's a guy that needs a little bit of volume, because eventually he's going to come into his rhythm, and then once he does, he's good. He shot the ball 5 times or more 5 times this year. In 4 out of those 5 games, he ended up in double figures. So you figure that out, right? In terms of scoring efficiency. Obviously, he's going to shoot the ball more if he sees the first couple go in. So I know it's not this simple, right? But 5 times this year, he shot the ball 5 times or more. 4 out of those 5 times, he's ended up in double figures. I think when he's in, I think there's got to be an effort to get him a couple of looks, because if he can get started, then yeah, that, to me, that gives a second guy that can score in multiple ways, where maybe you're looking at CJ, or I'm sorry, Cam or Miles is either running to the rim or shooting a 3. You know, he has ability to do it in a few different ways.
Yep. No, I'm with you there. It's going to be fun to see him continue to develop. Like, he's a really good player. He's already doing this 11 games into his freshman year. Like, he's going to continue to improve, and Purdue's going to need it from him. So yeah, and yeah, I don't have much more on him.
Yeah. Let's I think we can talk about the other 3 relatively quickly.
3.
You want to go to the 2 bigs? Let's talk about First and Berg real quick.
Okay, who's the third guy?
Jakari. We haven't talked about Jakari at all.
Oh, I guess. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll talk about First and Big, or First and Berg, the bigs. Only 1 rebound combined between them. Only 1 shot attempt. Berg gets a block and a steal. They play a combined 18 minutes. Berg gets 3 minutes in the second half. First gets 2 minutes. What's, I guess, stood out to you from them, if anything?
Not a lot. I guess, but we generally talk about everybody. So, like you said, in the first half, I thought Berg's moments were fine. He had a really nice, did a really nice job of walling up one time when somebody drove up to in and without fouling. I don't remember if that was a play he got a block on or if that was considered a steal. There's a couple plays in there where he seals out and somebody else gets the rebound, so he doesn't get credited for the rebound, but thought he did a relatively nice job. And in the second half, it was like, okay, the big man's back in. Let's face him and take him off the dribble. And then he got torched twice in a row. You know, and that's where the issue is. It's a mobility issue, right? And Caleb was Caleb in his moments today. And I think that's really all I got.
Yeah, I don't have much more. Berg was solid in that first half. He really was. First miss gets blocked on the layup. That one I actually do think he got hacked. Obviously, he's had a lot of struggles in general.
Yeah,
with finishing at the rim, but yeah, I don't know. Neither of them did anything that warranted more minutes, and that's just kind of where Purdue's at in their big room, and then kind of have to play Heidi at the 4, and just try to figure it out from there. Would like to see better rebounding from them in general. Obviously, Texas A&M elite rebounding team, but still would like to see them improve a little bit there. They don't get a lot of run. There's a reason why they didn't get that. So, okay, Jakari just gets the last guy. Another guy, so 0-1. I don't think he recorded any stats. 6 minutes. You just went to CJ because of the shot making. Jakari's defense was solid. I don't got like it.
Yeah,
you go to CJ because he can make the shots.
Right. And I don't think Jakari necessarily did anything wrong while he was out there. Thought he did fine defensively. It's just a matter of in this game, it really felt like they needed another shot maker, another shot creator.
Yep. No, I'm with you there. So went through all the players. I think we went through a lot of the major concepts in this game. I know we have some comments start. Is there anything else you kind of want to hit on before we get to those and start wrapping this up?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just kind of the last point I make here, and I don't remember. I think it was the Penn State game actually that we were talking about this, but when we're just looking at the big stats and the things that we try to hit on, especially in a lot of the preview shows, as we come into this, is where they have to win their battles. And today we talked about the fact that Texas A&M would get to the free throw line a lot. Purdue lost the free throw margin to them early on in this game, up through about 16, 17 minutes left, or 2 or 3 minutes left in the first half. They'd done a really nice job of playing defense without fouling. That starts to turn. Texas A&M wins the free throw margin battle by a sizable amount. Obviously, 6 of those or whatever down the stretch are trying to force something to happen, but they were losing it before that. They lose the 3-point percentage battle. They lose the rebounding and the offensive rebounding margin, lose second chance points. The one category they did win today was the turnover margin. I think they do end up losing the points off turnover margin by a couple, but you knew coming into this game, the 3-point percentage is a fluke, right? There's no way Texas A&M should win that battle. But you knew those other 2 things were probably going to go A&M's way. So you knew coming into this game that you had to do something from a possession standpoint by having significantly less turnovers than them to kind of even this thing up. And just from a big picture thing of like, these are the main things we have to take care of. It just didn't happen today, and not going to win many games against a team like this when that happens.
Yeah. A&M, Purdue's defense was fine, except for they couldn't rebound the ball in that second half specifically. Yeah, I mean, in that second half, A&M got over 50% of their misses. Like that just can't happen, especially in crunch time. I mean, even down the stretch, right, where Purdue has it at 6, they force a stop, A&M gets the rebound, they run 20 more seconds off the clock, and just kind of put the game out of reach that way. I don't love it, but I kind of, even I think early on, it was like, oh yeah, this is how this team's going to be, is that they are going to live and die by jumpers. They're going to have some spot games where TKR dominates the post, right, and covers that up a bit. This team is going to, it is oversimplifying, right? There's a lot of other things that go into it, but it's going to live and die by jumpers. And if the jumpers aren't really going to fall, it's going to be tougher for Purdue to win unless Braden has one of those games, TKR has one of those type games. So have a few start comments if we want to get into those. All right. Blake Winmer said at Tariq, I agree with you. Finally, we should have run in transition more. I have thoughts on this.
I think they did every chance. I think they did every chance they got, right? So, I mean, I think Purdue, especially Braden, is going to push the ball if there's a long miss and they have an advantage, or there's a turnover and they have an advantage. And today they created it, right? This is probably the most turnovers they've forced all year against a Power 5 opponent, I would assume. Has to be. Yeah. We forced 18 turnovers. So, I mean, there were just a lot more opportunities to do that. I think they've done it. Before this game, when they've had the opportunities, they just created a lot more of those opportunities. But I mean, I'm with you, especially if we're going to just lean into the small ball like we are at this point, right? The more we can run, the better. And I think that allows you to utilize Cam and Miles at their fullest possibility in terms of the max that they can achieve with this team. But we're typically not a team that creates a lot of turnovers, so the opportunity is not necessarily there all the time.
I looked up, Marshall had 19 turnovers. I know you said Power 5, so I think you were still correct, but Marshall technically had 19 turnovers, which did not realize that. And I'm with you. Like, Purdue should run. What other chances did they have to run this game?
Right.
Maybe a couple of rebounds, and maybe it's a little bit of roster construction where you don't have that really secondary ball handler you trust to push the pace when needed. And right, so now you do have to find Braden, but Braden's also grabs a lot of defensive rebounds. Like, I think did he have the most defensive rebounds on the team today? I assume. Yeah, he did. And those ones are the ones where you can go, or if you force some live ball turnovers, right? They have 11 steals. If the ball goes through the hoop, Texas A&M was in a 1-2-2 full court press. Texas A&M was somebody that pressured the ball. And so, yeah, you can try and run into them. That's going to be more turnovers. And I'm very curious to see what happens when Purdue faces a team that doesn't just drag out possessions defensively, because I am going through right now, and yeah, Marshall, I guess technically is a team that doesn't force long possessions defensively, and then Bama. Bama's like out of there since Bama, there really hasn't been a team that doesn't force long possessions defensively by nature. And so like it is great to be like, yes, they need to run more. For me, I don't know how they do it realistically, unless you're willing to live with a few more turnovers. And if that's the case, I think that might be fine, right? Because realistically, maybe Fletch can bring it up a bit more, right? Maybe Colvin can push the ball a little bit. When Cox and Harris are in, they can push. A lot of times, though, it has to be Braden grab and go, and then from there is when you can run. Against a defense like today, if you let them get set at all, they're automatically running 15 seconds off the clock, and you could try to beat it, but I think that's turnovers coming.
Yeah, the only place I'd push back a little bit is there's been a few of these games where teams have tried to set up a little bit of a press, and maybe it's not really with the intent to turn us over, but to slow us down in terms of initiating the offense. But there's been a few times, multiple times, where that ball gets to Miles or gets to Fletcher or Jakari or CJ if they're in it. Momentarily, you have a 3-on-2 advantage. And a lot of times we just hold that ball there because we trust Braden so much in terms of what he's going to do from an efficiency standpoint. And I think we may have to look at that, using that slide opportunity there, and trust those guys to go ahead and attack towards the basket.
Yeah, and that's where they just have to develop that and be confident. And like at this moment in time, I don't think it's there in their natural skill set.
Are they going to develop it by not trying it in November, December?
Like that's fair, but it comes from off season and stuff like that more than anything.
I know. I'm just.
But no, I get what you're saying. Like, and that's where I think I'm okay with that. I think if that's the case, you also have to expect a couple turnovers in there. Now, there's also should be some points that come from it, so it's a little bit of a give and take, in my opinion. From Yo, poor Harris is still struggling. Like to see more of Cox. I think you started. I'll let you go first.
I meant to pull it up when I was talking about CJ, so we're good. We already covered it.
Can I just add one
I don't
thing?
know that it's. I was just going to say I don't know that it's so much that Harris is struggling as some. He's struggling from outside, right? He's struggling from three, but outside of that, he's not, right? Yeah. He's doing a lot of other things really well. I just think right now CJ adds a particular dynamic that Purdue has needed in several of these matchups.
You hit what I was going to say. Harris has been solid outside of shooting the ball, which is a very important thing. Like a very important thing. So it's not like it's like can be just overlooked because he's doing a lot of other things well. But Cox is a gamer. It's fun to watch. Mm-hmm. Blake Widmer, didn't they basically just execute Penn State defensive game plan? Yeah, they play very similar styles defensively in terms of what they want to do. Again, I am personally just excited for when right, because I think the narrative right now is, just high hedge and Purdue can't do a thing. And that's just not the case, because there are teams that are going to do it and Purdue is going to torch them because the rest of the defense isn't good. That doesn't excuse this game. Purdue has lost 3 games the exact same way because teams are elite hedging, being physical, and also having length and rotation on the backside. It's just kind of like Purdue has faced them all at once. Is my hope. Maybe they're just really bad against it, but that's just kind of my thought.
Yeah, and you posted that stat on Twitter the other day about the defenses that Purdue was facing up through January 1. I don't remember exactly what it was.
It was
like essentially
it was defense. It was defensive turnover percentage. So which teams sorted by which teams forced the most turnovers. And then it was game by game. Purdue has played 5 of their top 6 opponents so far in terms of teams that forced the most turnovers. The only one left is UCLA, who is number 1 in the country.
Right.
A lot. So, basically, out of the bottom half of the teams, about the bottom half of the defensive turnover, they basically have 15 of those 18 games left.
And one of the things Painter talks about a lot is like you can say just do this because it worked against Purdue or it worked against this team. He brings this up a lot when people ask about playing zone. He's like, you can't just like Purdue can't just decide to go play zone one day. Like if you do it and you do it at a high level, you're going to be really good at it. But you don't just all of a sudden change what you do from a principle standpoint or an identity standpoint and do it at the same level that these teams that we've already played have, right? So those teams play this style of defense consistently. They execute it at an extremely high level. Other people can try to replicate it, but it's not necessarily going to have the same impact.
Yep, 100%. And Gentry BN, sorry, but 18 minutes Berg plus first and one rebound. Gentry BN, sorry, but 18 minutes Berg plus first and one rebound, 0 points, 7'2" and 0 rebounds. Yeah, I feel like we hit on it during talking about them, but I don't know if you have anything more.
I don't. Obviously, you would definitely like to see more production. It's hard too when they only did they have 18 minutes combined? Man, I did not know they played that much.
I have it at 17. Yeah,
17. Okay, yeah. I mean, that's rough.
Fair enough.
I don't know what else to say to
Blake Whitmer, if Heidi and Colvin dribble, drive, attack a bit more, does it make teams play a little more honest? Probably. Like if it gets to the point where teams really have to respect it, then yes. I think it's going to, just given how good Braden and Tiki are, though, I think you still live for the foreseeable future. If I'm a defense, I still live with Heidi or Colvin driving, opposed to Braden Smith running pick and roll or Trey Kaufman-Renn posting up.
No, I agree. And whether or not it's the prettiest thing in the world or not, Colvin's attack, when he does choose to attack, when he's got a little bit of space, has been primarily effective this year. Cam's still a little bit hit and miss, but, I was thinking about this during the game. This has nothing to do with the dribble, drive, attack. There's times to me at Cam's height, right, and his length, that it feels like somebody will close out to him, and in his head, it's like a space proximity thing. If I have a defender this close to me and he pulls the ball back down and decides not to shoot the three, like at 6'8" with his length, there's a lot of times I think he can go ahead and still pull that trigger. Like I'd like to see him shoot even when he's got pressure on him sometimes because it's so consistent. And I think he can just shoot over some of those guys as they're closing out and low as they're running to him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I do get you. And I would agree. Like, kind of wrapping it back to one of my major points from the beginning, because Purdue just kind of, especially against a team like this, you kind of just have to live with, if you have a good shot, take it. You might, because you might not get a great look. Camden Heidi shooting a catch and shoot three is a good shot 95% of the time, whether he has somebody slightly on him or not.
100%. That's all I got for today. How about you, buddy?
No, that's about it. I think it's a disappointing loss. It is not the end of the world. Purdue is going to be fine. Purdue is going to be competitive within the Big Ten. Purdue has holes, and that's kind of the case for pretty much every Big Ten team that you look at right now. So very tough task against Auburn, and the big reason why you won this A&M game more than anything is then it takes a little bit of pressure off that Auburn game. Not that it's a must-win by any means, but you lose at Auburn, it's 3 out of the last 4. In my opinion, Auburn's the best team in the country. We'll have a preview out next week, though. Like this is not a game that Purdue is just can't win, right? Purdue absolutely can win it. You have Braden Smith, you have TKR, you can win any game. And
they're not a high turnover forcing team, as we talked about the teams that have made them struggle, right? I think they only force like 11 a game, if I remember the stat right.
They force less turnovers than Purdue.
Yeah, it's going to be a different kind of matchup. To me, it's a matchup where we'll get into it more right later, but it's a matchup where Purdue's offense could flourish. To me, this has the makings of like an 85-90 type game.
And I'll dive deeper into the film and all that. It has to be a great Braden Smith game. That is what Auburn's going to give up. Auburn plays defense like Purdue did last year. Braden's going to have to be good. I know how many times was he on the floor today? Like 17, it felt like. This was a physical game for him, so hopefully he can get iced up, get healthy, be good for the next one. We do appreciate everybody tuning in. Obviously a disappointing loss, but Still good to talk about the team after. We'll have a preview out sometime next week, probably Wednesday, Thursday area, previewing a big game against Auburn. I know I've been very, very high on this Auburn team, but on the flip side, like Purdue beats Auburn, a lot of this talk goes, like a lot of the worries go away, at least momentarily. It will cover a lot of things if Purdue can get that win. Going to be a very tough game. We'll preview it sometime next week. And yeah, appreciate everybody tuning in. Hit the like button, subscribe button on the way out. Turn on the bell notifications. You'll get notified whenever we do go live, anything like that. Kraig, I don't know if you're lost just in thought or if you had something you wanted to say.
I was watching the Wisconsin Butler game, but no, I'm still planning on going to Birmingham, so I will likely be there to watch the Auburn game and go to the press conference and do some in-house coverage. And then going to be wanting to get on the road to come back to Indiana. So I haven't brought that up to you yet, Joe. You might need to find a new partner for Saturday, but we'll discuss.
Maybe I'll grab that what's his name? Braggs or something. Maybe I'll try to get him on the show. Yeah.
Greg Braggs?
Maybe I'll try to get him on the show. We'll see what happens. That's why you got to tune in. We'll see who is live post Auburn, and that one should be pretty much right after the game, especially if Craig's going to be driving back up. So appreciate everybody tuning in. Truly do mean that, allowing us to go to these games, allow it in travel and all that stuff. It really does mean a lot. So we will catch you all sometime next week.